Hello, and welcome to episode 9 of the Trove Design podcast. And as you can see, Andres and I are joined by another guest pair today from Gold Sheep Designs with Stephanie and Nathan. Stephanie, Nathan, could you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more about what you do?
I'm Stephanie Owens. I'm the co-founder of Gold Sheep Design here with my husband, Nathan, and I am primarily more on the brand strategy side of things, but recently I have also been doing a lot of hand lettering work, both personally and for clients, and together we do branding, illustration, and lettering recently as part of our creative studio, and we primarily work with entertainment companies, pop culture brands, and music brands.
Yeah, I'm Nathan Owens. Let's see, I graduated from design school in 2006. So I've been working in the design field since then, starting out as in print shops and realizing that was dying, moved to web primarily. So that's what I've been doing as a day job for many, many years now. And so kind of in that time, I had a sort of reckoning with design in general and decided that if I was going to maintain a career or a love of design in general, I would have to start illustrating passion projects on my own again, instead of just be sucked dry by corporate campaigns. So that was kind of the spark to what is now Gold Sheep Design.
And he thinks he graduated school in 2006. He graduated school in 2002.
I actually started the company I'm at in 2006.
Yeah,
so,
when you've been doing this as long as we have, and when you're as old as we have, you forget when you did things. Yeah, we both. That's where we met. We met in art school. I graduated in 2001. He graduated in 2002.
Yeah. Also, a good reason to have a relationship with someone for that long, so they can help remind you of your past.
I love that. And how long have you been doing Gold Sheep Design, or when did you start?
The pandemic is what made it the big switch.
We had a design company prior to that. However, it was repositioned as Gold Sheep Design. So I don't know when
we've probably been working officially together since 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And then in various iterations of just trying to figure out what we wanted to do and because at that point we were in our mid 30s, and we were really at that point just feeling like, if we're going to have a business together and this is going to be our life and a big part of our life, and we're married, we need to make sure that we love our business. And so it took some time to figure out what that looked like for us. And then in 2020, we all know what happened, and we just weren't happy with the kind of clients we were getting. We had some life events that changed things, and we just decided to just kind of scrap everything. And that's when we started Gold Sheep Design.
I love that. Yeah, and for our audience, if you have any questions or if you would like to hear more from any of these topics, please write a comment in the YouTube comments down below around anything that we talk about today. But I would like to introduce the topic as well. And maybe Andres, could you kind of introduce that and tell us a little bit more about what we'll be discussing today?
Yeah, we're going to go into a heated debate today. Well, maybe not so heated, but something that's been on a lot of people's minds is should you niche or not niche? And what Gold Sheep here today is going to introduce us to this new concept. I shouldn't say new concept. This other way of thinking for your business is using a playground. And we'll get more into that in a bit. They'll explain it way better than me. I just butchered it. Sorry, guys. And we'll get into that. And I'm super excited because Stephanie Owens has explained this to me. And she put me in my place one day when I was explaining to her.
So mean. Like, I'm so awful to him. Put him in his place.
Okay. Maybe I say that because I just didn't know, and because I'm obviously a little bit more younger than these two. They've seen it all. You guys heard that they've been in the game for a really long time, so they know what they're saying. They've been through it all. As you can tell, Nathan Owens was in the print shop days. So, print is somewhat dead, and there's not a lot of people going into that field. So there's a lot to be said and to be told. So that I'm sure, Nathan, you have a lot of war stories to tell us from those days as well. Like how people used to send files. Like, I wonder what that looked like. There's no Google Drive, I believe, back then. So how were people transferring files? That'd be one of my questions for you. But anyways, so that's going to be our topic. Just to recap before I go into a little rant, there's niching versus playground. And let's get into that. But before we get more into that, so figuring out, like, should people niche? And what does that look like?
Oh, man. Should people niche? Well, I think first we need to sort of define what it means to niche.
Absolutely.
I think traditionally what we're hearing a lot online about niching is finding a skill that you specialize in and matching that with an industry. I think just for terms of this conversation, to keep it easy to understand, it's you have a skill plus an industry. And I honestly don't see that many people doing this. So I'm sort of like, why is everyone telling us to niche down when no one is doing it? I think there's a lot of confusion around it. I think agencies don't do it because they're agencies. When you're an agency, you have all these freelancers that you work with, and you have employees that you have who have different specialties. So when you have an agency, and I also kind of want to clarify what an agency is. An agency is a middleman. Typically, you have a business and you have the designers, freelancers, people doing the work, and you have the agency who hires out depending upon the needs of the business. So I don't believe in being an agency of one, because that means you're doing everything and anything a client needs you to do, unless you are the person, like an agency of one who hires out. And in that case, it's very difficult for one person to do all of that. So there is a sort of an argument there to niche, to not take on so much. And I think both of us are firm believers in just like mastering a craft, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, yeah.
I think it's do you want to talk about that? Mastering a craft and the importance of that, especially for young designers?
Well, that's kind of I suppose it can go two ways. So the first way would be explore everything when you're starting out. You don't know where you're going to end up, what choices you're going to make on every 10-second basis when you're designing, unless you have a background in exploration and know what you tend to gravitate towards and know how that can benefit you and the final solution to that design. Excuse me, sorry.
Yeah, I think like with Nathan started doing his illustration work in about 2015, 2014, 2015.
2014
maybe. He allowed himself that space to really explore, and that's when he was like, yes, illustration is my thing. And then for me, it's like I have a photography background, printmaking, interior design. I've tried a bunch of things. And then it's just recently within the last few years where I'm like, lettering is my thing. And I'm like, right now, it's just, I have a healthy obsession with being as good as I can at it. So there's that aspect of niching down, like explore, but once you figure it out, like just go all in and figuring it out. And then there's the industry aspect of it, which, how do you feel about choosing an industry?
I don't necessarily, I'm not one for narrowing too far down, defining oneself, or I like to see the gray area in things in general. So niching down to a particular industry is for me, it just points to whatever got you started in those passion projects to begin with. So if you have an interest like us in science fiction or space or pop culture, music has been in our lives forever. They just kind of fall where you want them to fall. And and things just kind of align naturally, and you don't have to fight to find something. Just
Yeah.
be yourself.
I think it's also really important at the same time to have some kind of focus and not just be like, well, I do graphic design for everyone, because
Right.
then it's just like, so it's I feel like this whole niching down conversation is so black and white, when, like Nathan said, there is definitely a middle ground. Because if you, like, when we were doing Gold Sheep design, and we were like, okay, we're going to niche down because that's what everyone's telling us to do. We're going to do brand identity for music. And then it was sort of like, but then it kept being told, like, it could be narrower, it could be just rock musicians. And then I was just like, they don't have money. Like, it gets to the point where if you just go too narrow, you just don't have enough clients who can pay you what you need to make, because we are also big believers in, living, not off of ramen. So for us, it was really about finding that focus. And so, like, fintech, yeah, we're not about fintech. That's cool if people are, but it's like, no one's going to come to our website and be like, they're for fintech. You definitely get a vibe from our brand, and if you're in that vibe or not. But I believe that just like we're not for everyone, not everyone is for us as well. So I think part of niching down, or at least determining some kind of focus for your business, is figuring out what you don't want to do. I think that's is equally as important as what you do want to do. And I've talked with a lot of creatives, and sometimes they don't even know what they enjoy outside of design. And so I'm like, okay, well, what are some businesses you absolutely would never want to work with? And that could be for, background reasons. Like, I do not work with churches because of my background. And then there's some that we're just like, that sounds boring. Like, that's just not what we want to do. And because Nathan's had such long experience in the sports industry, and sports is not your thing. It's not his thing. It's like, we don't really want to, even though we have tons of work that we could showcase for the sports industry, we choose not to put that in the portfolio because it's not what we want more of.
I love this. And I think this is a good transition into the topic of the day, is the playground. So Stephanie and Nathan, can you break down the playground for us?
I think it's boundaries around what you want your business to look like, and how you're playing within your business. Because I definitely think, for us at least, play is a big part, and enjoying what you're doing, and just setting like a scope of, this is how we work, and this is what we do, and this is who we do that for. So I think that there's, in your playground, three components, and the first is your skill. And this is sort of the one I always think when I'm talking about this with people, that the skill is going to be the easy one. It's like, what's your skill? But it's not, because sometimes people either they haven't explored enough, and they don't really know what that skill is that they really want to focus on, which, if you're in that place, like, explore, figure out what you can't live without as a skill. And when someone asked me recently, well, how did you land on lettering? And I was like, well, it's the one thing that I can't not stop doing. I could live without doing some things, but if I'm not lettering, it's what makes me happy in the creative process. And so for Nathan, what would you say is your, like, the skill that you love the most?
Design wise?
Yeah.
Well, it's crosshatch. Yeah, which I never would have thought would have been my skill. That all came from exploration and developing a certain style, and then trying to figure out how to take it to the next level. So you never know where you're going to end up, really.
Yeah. And then for skills, especially if you're just starting or you don't have a large team, just figure out what that skill you want to focus on is. Because I just know from personal experience talking with clients, is they would much rather hire someone who's really good at a skill, who specializes in that skill, than hiring someone who's okay at a bunch of stuff. Like you're just gonna sort of get cheapos.
Yeah, well, not only cheapos, but you won't get the type of work you want, the stuff that makes you excited and gets you excited.
Yeah, the exciting projects, they're looking for people who specialize in a particular skill.
I have a quick question. Just don't mean to interrupt the flow here, but with skill, how did you figure out you were good at something? Because out there in the world, maybe for some of the younger people that might be watching this, you might be thinking that you're good at the one thing, but turns out that maybe you're not good at it, and it's because you're so in love with it that you think you're good at it. But if you were to go out there and actually sell this thing to the real world, people probably wouldn't buy it because it's not super good. It's not equivalent to the standard of what some people may think. So in your journeys, both of you, how did you figure out how did you find that metric? You're like, okay, I am actually good at this thing. People would actually pay me for.
Yeah. So I guess for me, I grew up drawing comic book characters. So that's always been like, it started with Ninja Turtles in third grade, I think.
Michelangelo.
And it just continued throughout high school. I was definitely, as you probably know, Andres, an introvert. I don't like, I'm not big into socializing and whatnot. So I was just in my room, drawing, playing music, that kind of thing, fantasizing about talking to girls. But then, so I hit college, and I fell in love with brand design. When I revisited illustration years later, it was kind of merging the two, and then that developed into something else, which developed into something else, which I feel I'm not sure where to take it at this point, but I'm sure over the years it will evolve as well. It's just kind of your end skill sets are basically defined by whatever past endeavors you've been successful at and those things that you enjoy. So yes, I mean, I can see not being successful at something that you enjoy being a criteria. And in fact, one of the reasons I started going a certain direction with my illustration work was because I didn't see it represented. I didn't see what I wanted to see, the things I was imagining in my head out there in the world. And I thought there was a spot for it. So if I could contribute a little bit to that stream of consciousness in the art world in some way, I guess that's, an honor to do so.
Yeah. And I also think I've witnessed his evolution as an artist for quite a while. Like I said, we met in 99. I also think that, going through those crappy jobs and just going through that experience and, kind of just the years accumulate, and his skills have gotten a lot better to the point where he's art director and, working your way up the ranks. I know some people, you hear that they make it big when they're 20, but that's not what happened with us. And for various life reasons, I don't think it had anything to do with skill. It was just life got in the way. But also I feel like when you started getting like interest from Marvel and DC licensees is when you gained confidence as well. And I feel like sometimes getting those first few clients also really helps, like people will pay for this, but I don't think it's absolutely necessary. I think a big part of it with Nathan is you put in a lot of hours of work developing the craft. I think that helps tremendously. There's the whole idea from Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers of 10,000 hours. Nathan has, I don't even know how many hours of design. I don't want to know either. It's a lot. For me, and I mean, I can speak to something that's a little bit more recent because my lettering journey has been within the last couple of years. My first stuff sucked, and I knew it did because I have a design background. I could see what was wrong with it. I just didn't necessarily know how to fix it. So at this stage in my life, I'm older. I was like, I don't want to go through 20 years of getting better. So I have a mentor who I pay, and I feel he is the best lettering artist in the world. He's very accomplished. He is someone that I looked up to since I was in art school with Nathan, always thinking, wow, this guy's work is just the coolest. And because of the pandemic, he started offering online critiques and personal coaching and stuff like that for lettering. And I just feel very fortunate that I'm at a spot in my life where I'm able to basically hire someone to help me get better, to get that personal feedback. But it's not in an like academic setting. I'm not paying anywhere near as much as it would cost to go to like Art Center to learn lettering. I'm paying him a good fee once a month to critique my work. And that has helped me grow very quickly. Just having someone to mentor me through the process, to where whenever I have my critiques with him now, we're talking about minutia. We're talking about very fine details. And he thinks it's cool too, because he gets to see like, wow, in the last couple of years, like you've really come a long way. And I knew that work that I did in the beginning wasn't good enough to put up next to Nathan's work. So I worked, because I think that's part of it too, when you have a partner who has more years of the design work, and I have more like of the strategic side of things, but he definitely has more years in the design field, that it's sort of like, well, I can't just put my stuff up next to his on our website and be like, yeah, this compares. So I just knew that I needed to get better fast, to be able to pursue this and have my work. And now I put my work next to his on the website, and I'm like, okay, it looks good.
Give it a few months, she's going to take over the website. She works a lot faster than I do.
It looks good. So I think that has helped me get better to the point where people now hire us for lettering work.
Can I ask a question in there around, I love this idea of mentorship and how you were able to seek out and find somebody that was able to mentor you and show you, or at least show you the path on how to get better. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on like feedback that younger designers should look for when they're looking to maybe get better at a task. I know it's really hard for a lot of designers to show off their work, whatever it is, because it's kind of their baby, or they're scared, or maybe they're not good enough. But kind of taking all those stigmas away and saying, okay, I know I want to get to a certain level. How can I get to that level? Like, what kind of feedback are you typically looking for? Or maybe a better question is, what is a bad mentor? What is feedback that we don't want to look for? We kind of discussed this on a previous episode if people want to go and look at feedback, but I'd be really interested to hear both of your opinions on just as you're trying to get those reps in, get those hours, what is some good or bad feedback that you should look towards or stay away from?
In lettering is very specific. It's a very specific skill. It's like illustration, but there are rules around it. Where with just illustrating a character, you get to do whatever you want. But the end goal of lettering is to have a readable message that conveys emotion. So it needs to be readable. That's the first thing. And we were talking about this whenever Nathan was thinking, looking to hire a junior designer. What are you always looking for? Does it meet the brief and does it communicate? Because whatever we're creating, unless it is purely art, it's communicating something, and it needs to communicate that. What would you add to that?
Yeah. Well, I think this just goes back to my years in the e-commerce business. I mean, it just circles around, selling product. It circles around conversion, getting eyes on it, and being clear in your communication to the customer. So that was an incredibly valuable thing. I mean, you can say that any feedback is welcome, and you can take it for what it is. Over the years, you'll figure out what works and why. And then you'll come to realize that some people, if you take risks, will get it, others won't. And that's the sacrifice you have to make sometimes as an artist, or an illustrator with a style, or, something like that.
I think part of it too, even if it is personal work, is look at your piece and create a brief for it. Create some sort of boundary that you're working in for this piece, because when we're working with clients, we have a creative brief that we've created, and we have goals that need to be checked off whenever we're doing work for a client. And we sort of do that very loosely when we're doing personal work as well. It's like, what are we trying to achieve? And then, circling back to that during the process and after the process, and saying, like, how successful were we in hitting these marks? And with a client, like, that is all over the presentation. It's like, anytime they make a decision and they want to be like, well, this color, I'll be like, okay, so what goal are we not meeting here? So I think in terms of like giving yourself feedback is, what does success look like for this piece before you even start the piece? Just knowing what you're trying to achieve is also very helpful.
I love that so much, the success of the piece and having those kind of boundaries that you were talking about. And that kind of goes back. I know we've been talking about the skill portion. You said of Playground, there's like three portions, and I didn't know if we wanted to maybe go on to one of the other ones as well.
Yeah. The only other thing I have to say about skill is, as you get older and more experienced, you'll get more skills under your belt. I mean, this is one of those things where people ask me, like, you're the copywriter for the future, but you also have this creative studio. Well, yeah, it's because I'm old. Like, you're just able to have more skills the more experience you have and the more hours you put in. So you'll have sub skills, and those skills can always help you with your business, like writing. We can write very well for our business because of that experience, but it's not like what we're trying to sell people. Like, we have it very focused as to it's branding, lettering, and illustration. The next one is my favorite. It's like the character part. It's the fun part. It's like your culture and what you like in life. And sometimes people have such a hard time figuring this out because they're so in the grind of making a business that they've forgotten what they just love. And I think we were there too.
Absolutely.
And we sat down and we wrote a list of like just 10 dream clients. If we could work with anybody, who would that be? And I think all of them but one were entertainment, music. And then we just started looking. We just, like me, I literally look around the house and I'm like, I have Funkos above me. I have comic books above me. We love rock music. We love funk music. We love just music in general. Well, not all music. But just thinking about what you like and your background and your character and those types of things, and seeing those within your work. We're huge Star Wars fans. We're going to get off of this and we're going to go watch Kenobi. So how important
I think
is that to our work?
Just riffing off your character statement, I think that, and what you said about having done a lot of things in the past. So after college, it was just a grind. It was survival. We don't come from well-to-do families. So it was a matter of finding a job and working your way up. But in doing so, you tend to lose yourself a little bit. You tend to compromise who you are for the goal of survival in the long term. And it wasn't until we were,
almost
pretty old, until we
40.
realized we could have both. And that's what we want for other creatives.
Yeah. We want everyone to skip the grind years that we have. I mean, I wasn't even you can make an argument that it's a creative field, but I was in education for 17 years and just did not pursue any creative at all because I needed to get out of the situation I was living in, and I needed to start making money and surviving because I wasn't. And while I'm very glad that I had that opportunity to get out of that situation, I sacrificed a lot of myself for that. I wish I didn't have to do that, but that was just my life. But it wasn't until later that I was just sort of like, I was miserable in that job because I wasn't able to do anything really creative, and I got transferable skills from it. So I'm not like downplaying any of it at all. But just, I wish I hadn't gotten rid of all of those years. So it's really important to do what you love, and also to do the skill you love around what you love. So like Nathan has said, when you were doing early design stuff, can we tell a funny story?
Yes, please do.
That's a little, it's not X-rated.
Embarrassing.
That's okay. We can just put it in a thing right here.
If it is X-rated,
it's not really
anyone out there, cover your ears.
Yeah. Cover your ears if you're under 18.
You have
Yep.
children, put on your headphones unless
There you
you're
go.
like my parents and you just don't care.
I'm nervous.
No, the stripper pole. Like when you worked at when he worked at
right.
when he worked at the print shop, that he needed to do a logo for a mobile stripper pole company.
Yeah.
And instead of like the whole idea of make the logo bigger, it was make the nipples bigger. And it was just like, you just have to do that kind of stuff. I mean, he did a Dora the Explorer birthday invitation.
That was the most fun I've ever had at a print shop. The Dora the Explorer birthday invitation
for this guy's niece.
Girl, yeah.
Yeah. But you just do what you have to do. And there's just like, you just have to do what you have to do. But do you really? Can you just go after what you really want to go after? And we've learned that you can definitely be a small fish like we are and work and have big brands and exciting brands be interested in you. It comes down to the work, and I think the passion as well. It's when we reach out to brands and let them know that we want to work with them, because outreach is like essential. We're learning that late in life too. There's just something nice about having a designer who says, big fan, and then telling them why, and like really genuinely wanting to help their business because they know we're excited about it, and that makes them excited to work with us.
Yeah, just going along that line, like just things that, like we got an email today from someone. We've been doing outreach for a week or two.
It was a shut the F up moment.
Yeah, like somebody that I've been watching on YouTube for a while, a couple of years now, and just to hear from him.
We have a meeting with him next week.
It was it was an insane moment. And then like before that, like just reaching out to this musician who's not incredibly well known, but I love his music, and just saying, we would love to work with you someday if things align, and just to have him, who is also an introvert, who also doesn't like to show his face, to have him respond in a positive way is, it's fun, and it's inspiring, and you're creating something for yourself, opportunities for yourself that you may not have otherwise had you not given yourself the permission to go after those things that you're passionate about.
I mean, I love murders. I don't love murders. That's weird. Andres knows this. I like a cozy murder mystery, and I'm into true crime and that kind of stuff. And just having that one little thing on our website, like we did a murder mystery company, like gaming company, their brand identity. And it's just like, we get to do cool stuff for cool people, and we get it. And it makes the design process a lot easier because we are in that world. So you're your character and your culture and all of that is just, for me, a huge part of the playground. And I think it sort of replaces in my mind the idea of an industry niche. It's just sort of like we vibe with these people and we like working with them. And so whatever that may be for you, even if it's, I've seen people who don't necessarily do design, but their copy is super inspired by their culture. So if you go to our website too, like I've written the copy, I use music lyrics. I incorporate what we're into our copy, into the photography, into the stuff we don't sell to people, just to incorporate those cultural inspirations and just parts of our life into the brand as well. So I think you can do that regardless of what your service is. Just show a bit of your personality in your brand, and I think people dig it.
I love it because when you say like playground method, I'm just picturing back, when you were on the playground and it was so easy to just walk up to somebody and be like, hey, you seem really cool. I like what you're doing. Let's be friends, and then you could go walk to somebody else. You don't have to stay with your niche. Like you could move around. Right. And so I think that's kind of what you're saying in terms of the personality side of, oh, I love rock music, or I love murder mystery or something else. And it doesn't have to just be the one thing. You can kind of work on all assets or all facets of your life.
That's like awesome. We have a client who we work with on a regular basis who has a guitar shop. And how did we know them? People that ask like, how do you meet these people? I bought a guitar off the guy. Like it's just, and it's easy to do the work for him because he doesn't have to explain to me the difference between this kind of guitar and this kind of guitar, or how to categorize them on the website or whatever, because I already get it. And it makes me more valuable to him because he doesn't have to explain things, but also I enjoy it because it's guitars, and guitars are, they've been a part of my life forever.
That's amazing. I love that. And I've heard this story too, somewhere else. You explained it to me, and it's very fascinating, and I love it. The one thing I have a question now is, so we've gone through the skill, so that's number 1. Number 2 is culture. What is number 3?
Well, I like alliteration. Used to be an English teacher. It's conquests. This is where you sort of put it together. So you've got your skill and you're incorporating your culture, and then now you're gonna conquer something. Like who are you trying to work with? And I think there's 2 aspects to this. It's like literally, who do you want to work with? What companies, what businesses, brands specifically do you want to work with? And how can you create that work, incorporating culture and craft into something that they will want to hire you for? And then if you don't know specific brands, like just think of, like for us, musical instrument companies. That's a conquest. I know conquest, it sounds so like hard, but like it's like we're taking them over, but it's just this is our focus of industries. And it can also be segments, like market segments. So for instance, consumer licensed goods is something we have in our portfolio that a lot of people might not think about. It's like people, like Marvel doesn't make Marvel shirts. Someone else they have the licensing agreement with Marvel to sell Marvel shirts. So positioning your work so you can have your work on product, like on toys, on mugs. If you go to the store and you see anything that's a comic book, Stranger Things just came out, so there's a lot of Stranger Things consumer licensed goods out right now. That's not really an industry. It's more of just a segment of the market that you can do work for. There's editorial work, which is for magazines. It can be online or print. There's publishing, book covers. And then you can maybe get specific and I want to do YA science fiction book covers, because that's going to look very different than YA historical romance novels.
My favorite.
Your favorite. I know. That's like our next conquest, right? But just thinking of, okay, who could I send my work to? Who could we, attract with our work? And I think once you just know what skill you want to pursue, what kind of work you want to do, and having it be meaningful to your life, and then go after it with certain industries and certain particular businesses within that industry. And you might already know, like, if we're doing musical instrument companies, there's definitely certain ones we want to hit, but then doing some research and finding maybe some ones we didn't know about and doing research with them too. So once you think of those first initial, they'd be a dream client. Well, who else is sort of like that? And just making sure your portfolio is positioned to do outreach for them.
Amazing. I had a question and now I forget it, so I'm going to toss the ball over to you, Charles.
Yeah, no, I love that. I see that we are kind of getting close to the end of our time here. And so I wanted, first of all, I just think this has been a great conversation. And so I'm sure that we will ask to have you back in the future. And if you in the audience are listening or watching to this, please let us know if you want us to get Gold Sheep Designs back on. I think that you've hit a lot of stuff that younger designers and really designers of any age are things that resonates with us, maybe introverted in the past or still am, and trying to figure out, okay, here's all my interests. How can I pursue all of them instead of just one in particular? Or how do I know which one is the one for me? So my last question for you is, what is kind of the one piece of advice or the one wrap up of this concept of playground method that you would want to hand off to somebody?
Do you want to do one and I'll do one?
Well, it's you created the method, so you go right ahead.
I'd love to hear one from both, so we can start with one of you.
I think my biggest piece of advice to not just new designers, but all designers, is get the work in your portfolio that you want more of, and leave out the other stuff. And if it requires creating stuff on your own, that's so much more powerful than doing something from a client that you didn't enjoy, that you don't want that work anymore. Because at the end of the day, they're hiring you for the work. Can you do the work that you say you can do? So it's sort of a twofold piece of advice, like, have a portfolio full of work and stop talking about how you can do logos in carousels and dissecting other people's logos in carousels. Do the dang work and make sure it's the work you want. And that's what's going to get you hired.
Yeah. This might go a little in the woo direction, but
it's okay.
But I think it definitely comes down to knowing yourself, and reconciling knowing yourself with whatever expectations you put on yourself, others put on you. So I guess I would say just explore. The biggest thing I think I see other designers, especially beginning designers, do, which is fine to some extent as long as you move forward from it, is copying someone else's style in the way that you are learning that style, how it's working. But inevitably you want to bring something new to the table. If you do that, you're not only adding something to the world, but you're defining yourself for others as someone to be hired for a specific look, specific feel, and that's something only you can do. And if you do that and you do it well, you'll be hired for whatever you want.
I love
Makes
that.
total sense. I remembered my question. So sorry to interrupt, Charles, but now that I remembered it, so this is just a fun hypothetical question. Who would you choose, Jack White or Jack Black?
Oh, that's easy. For me, it is.
One would be maybe more fun. The other one would
More
be
fulfilling.
More fulfilling. Yeah.
Jack White. I would pick Jack White.
I guess I would pick Jack White.
Jack
as well.
White is actually listed on our dream clients.
Yeah.
Like we have conversations around breakfast on how could we reach Jack White, and we're not having like woo woo. We're daydreaming about reaching Jack White, guys. We're absolutely freaking serious. How can we go about reaching this particular person, and will it happen?
Well, and
who knows?
and
That's
this
not
goes
the
back
point.
to like to the whole. I've been working in the sports industry for so long. I don't want to do anything sports. However, Jack White has a baseball bat company, and so one of the questions that came up was, do we reach out to them, despite it being in the sports industry, but as a stepping stone perhaps to Jack White? And my final answer, I think, was no, it's not worth it, because
it's sports.
Because it's sports, and it's going against everything that we started Gold Sheep for.
Mm-hmm. But it was a good conversation for us to have, and I think it's good to. We're very fortunate that we live together and we're able to have these conversations anytime we want. So having someone that you have these sort of not daydream conversations, but like legitimate conversations of, I would really like to work with this brand, person, whatever. How could we make that happen? And looking at, what do they need? Do we do something that they need? And if we do, how can we get that in front of their eyeballs? And then if we don't necessarily right now, what can we create to then get in front of their eyeballs? That's what we do every day.
I love that strategic planning. And if Jack White, if you were watching our very small podcast,
hit us up, Jack.
Yeah, send everybody just spam Jack White. No, maybe don't do that.
Don't do that. That's awful.
Yeah, don't do that. But no, that is great to know. Any last questions from you, Andres, or any last comments?
I think we covered it pretty well, and I'm really happy that we got to have this conversation with the both of you. This has been a cool, special engagement today. I probably could ask more hypothetical questions or stuff like that, like who would you rather choose this, but maybe that would be for another episode at some point. But yeah, that's all that I got. Any follow-up questions for you, Charles?
No, I don't have anything. So I just want to say another big thank you to Stephanie and Nathan from Gold Sheep Designs. We appreciate you so much coming on and just teaching us a little bit about the difference between niching down and having a playground method, whether that's for your personal work and you're going to go get a job in-house, or for an agency that you're wanting to start. That has just been so valuable to myself, and I'm sure to others listening and watching. So big thank you there. If you are watching this, please go and follow Gold Sheep Designs on Instagram. Where else can they find you?
Bahans. I don't know how to pronounce that.
Nathan says Bahanse just to make fun of it, so he forgets how to actually say it. Yeah. We're on Pinterest, Dribble. Instagram's the main
Instagram.
Oh, we have a newsletter. We have a newsletter. Go to that. That's where I drop the juice every week. That's the stuff that like you're not going to get anywhere else. You can get that on our website.
Awesome. Go to their website and to Instagram, get on that newsletter and get the hot gossip from there. And we will thank you for watching, everyone, and we will see you in the next episode.
Talk to you later.
Guys, appreciate it.